Hello and welcome to a video where I'm going to talk about the new, well, relatively new mouse by Roccat, the Roccat LEADR. So I just want to make it clear that these kind of videos are not something I'm good at. It might not be perfect, but I'm going to do my very best to give you the necessary information that you want. As you probably have noticed already, this is not going to be a video about unpacking the mouse, but instead I'm going to talk about the mouse and hopefully give you the information that you want and need to know before you actually buy the mouse, if you ever going to buy the mouse. Okay, so first of all, we're going to talk a little bit about the specs about the mouse. We can start with how big it is, right? So the width of the mouse is 8.1 centimeters. The depth of the mouse is 12.9 centimeters. And the height of the mouse is 4.6 centimeters. For me, this is a really good mouse when it comes to height. I would prefer it to have been 2 millimeters higher though, because my old mouse, the Logitech G500, I believe is 4.8 centimeters. It comes with a 1.8 meter cable, which you will plug into the docking station. You can also plug the cable into the mouse itself if you want to do that. You will need to do that in order to update the firmware of the mouse, so keep that in mind. It weighs 128 grams. For me, that is a little bit too light. I would have liked it to be about 20 grams heavier than what it is. That's what my old G500 was. It has 12,000 DPI and it has a optic laser as well. You can see under here, the laser is placed there on the mouse, not dead center. It's a little bit on the front part. This is where you connect the cable, as you can see here. And to loosen the cable, you will need to press in this button right here. Also, in order to actually turn on the mouse, you will have to use this button right here to just push it forward, and it will turn on. And you will also need to press this button on the mouse and the one behind the docking station in order to synchronize the two objects with each other. The mouse also comes with a total of 16 buttons. You have the two normal buttons here, the left and right mouse button, and you have 14 customizable buttons after that. You have these on the side here. You have the wheel, and you can click it down. You have this fin, I like to call it a fin, up here, which is this way, left and right. I just open something by clicking that. And on the side, you have these two buttons here. You have this one, which you can up and down. And lastly, you have the one down by the thumb, which is by default the easy shift button. Now, what is the easy shift button? It is simply that when you hold it down, you will change the button layout on all of the buttons. So let me just show you here. Here we have the Roccat Swarm software that you will need to download and install for your mouse. I have three profiles here: my default profile, my PUBG profile, and my Black Ops 3 profile. So let's see. Let's go to profile. No, not profile manager. Button assignments. Yeah. So let's go back here. As you can see, we have a list of buttons, and there's the easy shift layout as well. So if I want to press, let's just go to computer 10, computer, that's the fin here, this one. So if I just press that, I will open my computer. But if I also hold down the easy shift button, which right now is 13, the button down here, I will instead change track in whatever program I'm using. Currently it is Spotify. Close that. So technically you have 30 button layouts that you can use in a game. You don't count the easy shift button because you can't use the easy shift button with itself, unfortunately. Yeah. There is one downside with the mouse though. So I'm just going to place another mouse here, my old G500. Okay, so as you can see, the space between the wheel and the edge on the G500 is significantly bigger than on the Roccat LEADR. Between the wheel and the macro button, there is extremely little space for failure. So when I'm playing, for example, Black Ops 3, which requires a lot of movement of the mouse, or any other fast-paced multiplayer shooting game, you're gonna have a problem with these two buttons. Primarily this one for me. Basically is that when I'm playing, I have my I don't remember what this finger is called in English. Sorry about that. So I'm resting my finger over here, which is right on top of this button. So I have to disable that in Swarm whenever I'm playing Black Ops 3, which is of course something I've done here. As you can see, number 8, where is it? There it is. I have disabled these two because they are only in the way for me. So that is a downside with the mouse. I do not recommend it when you're playing fast-paced shooters or competitive shooter games. Single player or just for casual play, sure thing, it's a great mouse. I highly recommend it. But fast-paced shooters, multiplayer, where you don't want anything interrupting your clicking, then this mouse is not for you. You want to steer away from this. It is a fine mouse when it comes to, for example, PlayerUnknown's Battleground. It is also a really good mouse for MMOs. It is also a fine mouse when it comes to Windows. In Windows, for example, I'm using this button here. Let's see. Yeah, this button to refresh my web browser. I'm using this one. When I go right, I open. Oh, come on. Oh, and that's because I'm using the wrong slot. When I do this, nothing's happening. There we go. It opened a program called Everything. As you can see, it is opening this program, and when I go left, it's opening my computer. You know, these two are something I use all the time, actually. This one I use as a scroll in a web browser, which just continuously goes up or down. You don't have to keep scrolling in order to go up and down. But there's no precision with this one, so let's keep that in mind. You can also use it in any kind of software. For example, Photoshop, you want to change the how big the font is. You just click up on the numbers and you hold it up, and it'll just keep going up till you get to the number that you want. Right, like I said, this mouse can be good for games like PlayerUnknown's Battleground. Why is that? Well, if you play this game, you know that there are lots of key bindings that you need to be aware of, that you use all the time. For example, healing items, they are, I believe it's 7, 8, 9, 0, and you have the leaning function. For me, that is not ideal. So what I've done is that I placed bandages and the boost items on these two buttons here. And I also use the easy shift button so that if I hold it down and then click these two buttons, I use first aid kit and a med kit. Really helpful. These two buttons over here, this is for the map and this is to delete the waypoint if I'm playing with other people. Easy to reach. I'm using the fin here to increase and decrease my zeroing distance when aiming down sight with a scope. And I'm using this one here. When I go up, I auto run, go down, I open my inventory. And the side buttons here is for leaning. So this is leaning right, left, and this is to lean right. So I'm utilizing almost all the buttons on this mouse for that game. In Black Ops 3, I don't use these buttons as much as I would like to, simply because I don't need to. You don't need that many buttons for Call of Duty. The only button here I use is the this one right here. It's a slide. That's about it. Yep. For now, also when I press down the mouse to use my specialist weapon or ability, but hey, you can do that on any kind of mouse. Nothing special there. Same with this button here. So when it comes to Call of Duty, this mouse is not that great. If you don't need this for Call of Duty, if that's the only game you're playing. But for PlayerUnknown's Battleground, H1Z1, any kind of game that you don't require a lot of key bindings, but you have to stretch your hand across the keyboard in order to reach them, this mouse here, this here, I highly recommend it. Any downsides besides the space between the macro buttons and the wheel? It's a little bit too light, as I said, but that's a personal preference. It's just a few millimeters too low, but once again, personal preference. One thing, once you're inside, you should also turn down your or turn off illumination, which is, for example, if I just click here, is it gonna change? Yeah, there we go. On PUBG, I have a blue profile, and on Black Ops 3, I have a red profile. It will only drain your battery at a faster pace. That's about it. So I highly recommend turning that off if you want a longer living battery. The battery doesn't take long to charge. Whenever you're not at home or you're using a computer, just hang it up for recharging and you shouldn't have a problem with the battery at all. It's about 28 to 24 hours of battery time. One downside, here's another downside. If you go to settings, you can see here we have the DPI switcher. It doesn't tell you which DPI switch or setting you're on, which in my opinion is a downside. It could have shown on the docking pad which DPI settings you're on. Wouldn't have taken them much to do that. They might have increased the price though, but in my opinion that is something that should have been on the docking. So you could have just thrown a glance at the docking station to see what setting you're on. But that's about it. Another thing is that the DPI switcher here is for both vertical and horizontal. But this is something that you change. With Logitech, you can change your DPI for vertical and horizontal separately for games that has a different vertical sensitivity than they do horizontally. For example, the Metro series has that. So going into the software to change that is a really good feature, which this application is missing. That's the only downside with the Roccat Swarm that I can think about right now. And I think also that's all you need to know about the mouse. Also my experience with it. I see now that I've been talking for about 18 minutes. I hope that this video has given you any idea of what kind of mouse this is, or if you actually need it. Not only is it a really good overall gaming mouse for any kind of game, it is also a really good mouse for Windows and for editing, Photoshop, stuff like that, because you have a lot of key binding for the mouse that you can use. A total of 30 buttons. But before we end this video, I'm gonna show you the different bindings we have for the Roccat mouse via the Roccat Swarm application. If you're not familiar with the Roccat software, this might be something that you want to see. So you can assign a macro. There are lots of built-in macros here already, lots of games. We also have for Skype, TeamSpeak, Windows functions. Even Xfire is here. You have Photoshop, you can fill color, open, save as, World of Warcraft. Now this is something that a lot of people is probably going to use. Attack, auto-run, talent, social, quest log, all that shit that you need. So yeah, you have a lot of built-in macros, or you can record your own macro. You can assign hotkeys. You can do all of these at the same time. I'm not sure if that's gonna work though. I have not tested it. And then you just press something on the keyboard to assign a single key. You can assign a timer for when you are writing, and you need a timer for when your pizza is done in the oven. Basic functions as well can be useful. Advanced functions, DPI cycle, profile cycle, and profile presets. I don't see the reason for profile presets, since if that's done automatically. You have internet, browser backwards and forwards, you have browser search, and everything you need for a browser. You have multimedia. You can open different applications on your computer or folders, which I'm using. System and operating system. I know. Yeah, think about it. You accidentally do a reboot while you're playing, for example, Battlefield or Counter-Strike, World of Warcraft. You're the main tank, and suddenly, and you just shut off your computer or rebooted it. That's not fun. You have more functions here. You can even have a command line. Wow. And you can disable it. And that's about it. Yeah, and that's where I'm gonna end this. I hope you've learned something, and I hope to see you again in future videos. If you have anything to add, any questions or feedback, please post it in the comment section below, and I'll do my best to read them eventually. Goodbye.